what do you think? Is AI in the end destroying more jobs, or is it creating more jobs?
I think in the short term, it will destroy a lot of jobs.
AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years.
Yes, people are like, wow, this is a bit scary. It's completely new territory.
Hi everybody. The Indian IT jobs are now in deep trouble, and it's showing cracks everywhere.
Active job demand in India's technology sector hit a 28-month low in June of 2026.
India's biggest software companies are staring at this huge structural shift.
Look at this. INFOSYS told its investors that artificial intelligence now makes up 8.2% of its revenue. That number is growing double digits quarter over quarter. But on the exact same day, on the exact same call, INFOSYS cut its revenue forecast for the entire year. So the company that grew by 19.7% in FY22 is now expected to grow by only 1.5 to 3%. Similarly, in 2025, TCS said that they will remove 12,000 roles and ended up removing 8,000 at a cost of 1,400 crores. But if you look at TCS revenue, it grew by 4.6% in rupee terms. HCL's profit went up by 20%, but headcount went down by 3,292 people. Tech Mahindra's profit also went up by 20%, but headcount went down by 863. So do you see what's happening? The IT industry is growing, but it's growing without jobs. So the question is, why is the Indian IT machine breaking? And as an engineer, how do you escape this chaos? Now, before I tell you about that machine, you need to know where the opportunities are booming. Today, every high-performing professional needs to know how to use Claude to be super productive. Working professionals are using it to finish hours of work in minutes. Founders are using it to automate repetitive tasks and scale without adding headcount. Freelancers are delivering projects faster and serving more clients. And sales teams are running personalized campaigns with the same resources. And the best part is, you don't need to come from a technical background. If you want to know how to use Claude in the best possible manner, you must attend the Claude Mastery Program by Outskill. It's a completely free 16-hour live training program that's happening this Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. In this Outskill training, you will learn how to use Claude for research, writing, business analysis, presentations, automation, content creation, and building workflows that can save you hours every single week. This workshop will help you use Claude to become super productive, create more value, and unlock better career and business opportunities. So don't miss this crazy opportunity. Use the link in the description and reserve your seat now. If this is clear, now let's go back to the story. The year is 1999 and the world is on the brink of collapse.
This is one of those days that I never thought would ever arrive. This is not a challenge that is susceptible to a single government program. It is a complex test that requires us all to work together.
President Clinton had already issued an open warning, news channels were screaming danger, and predictions were made that planes will fall from the sky, banks will stop functioning, and the entire country of America will be in complete chaos. This was due to a silly computer bug called Y2K bug.
Y2K. What does it mean?
Y2K bug, a line of computer code that could not recognize dates beyond 1999.
Global shutdown because of Y2K.
For those who don't know, back in the 1960s and 70s, memory was more precious than gold. It was so expensive that even 1 MB of additional storage would cost more than $3 million. So engineers had to be very careful about every alphabet and every number that they entered into the computer, because every alphabet needed more memory. But the engineers found a very simple but a genius hack. They thought, in a database, instead of writing 1961, 1962, 1963, they could save millions of dollars in memory by simply writing 61, 62, 63. But there was one big problem. When the year was about to turn from 1999 to 2000, millions of computers across the world would assume that suddenly they were in the year 1900. So the engineers were scared that the bank system would calculate interest as if you traveled back 100 years. Aviation systems might ground planes thinking that they hadn't been serviced in a century, and power grids could trigger emergency shutdowns to cause a blackout. This is the reason why there was a warning all across the world that the Y2K bug needs to be fixed. But the problem was that to fix this problem, millions of lines of code needed to be rewritten, and that too manually. Now, while America was full of engineers, the problem was that America was so short-staffed that President Clinton himself personally asked retired programmers to come out of retirement.
There is a wealth of knowledge in America's tens of thousands of retirees who once worked in the computer industry or government as programmers or information technology managers. I'm pleased to announce that the Department of Labor will expand its job bank and talent bank to help to meet this challenge.
And nobody wanted to fix this manual code because back then everybody was excited to build the next .com, because back then millions of dollars were pouring into .com companies.
Silicon Valley-based .com companies soon became the hottest commodities on the planet.
So the American companies were stranded at the edge of a nightmare. But that is when a bunch of engineers from India came to their rescue. One of these companies was INFOSYS. The other was TCS, Tech Mahindra and HCL. All these companies put together rescued America from the Y2K crisis. That is how the Indian IT industry was born. In fact, in 1999 alone, Infosys made $100 million in revenue. Now, the catch over here was that this work that Infosys, TCS, Tech Mahindra, all of them did, it was a lot of hard work, but it required very less intellectual capability in the workforce. It was the software equivalent of painting every single house in the city by hand. So it required very less intellect, but because it was supposed to be completed within a deadline and the work was very high volume, it required engineers from all across the world. And India just happens to be a beneficiary. This is where India became the perfect destination. Why? Because India had something very, very specific. A generation of engineering graduates, all trained in English, produced by a college system overflowing with engineers struggling to find a job. So Infosys, Wipro and TCS, they did something very clever. At first, they sent people to the work, putting Indian engineers on the client floors in New Jersey and London. And then they flipped this equation. They got work from foreign clients and got them done in India. And this is where a beautiful math emerged, which practically became a money minting machine. You see, a client in Pennsylvania back then paid an American contractor $60 to $70 per hour. Infosys did the same work for $27 to $30 per hour. And out of these $27 to $30, Infosys paid a fraction of it to Indian engineers. So everybody won in this equation. The client saved a lot of money. The IT companies made billions of dollars in profit, and the Indian engineers were able to elevate their entire family out of poverty. So, do you notice what the IT revolution was built on? It was not built on a product, an intellectual property, or a patent. It was built on selling time at cheap rates in high volume. I repeat, selling time at cheap rates in high volumes. Now, remember this equation because I will come back to this. After the Y2K panic, the world did not collapse. These Indian companies were left with thousands of trained engineers and deep relationships with Western corporations. So they invented a pyramid, and this is what became the money minting machine in the early 2000s for India. At the bottom, they hired thousands of freshers straight out of engineering college. At the middle, they had team leads with 5 to 10 years of experience to supervise this huge base. At the top, they had architects, delivery heads, and client partners. These people were the essential brain and decision makers for the entire organization. Now let's take a look at this equation again. You see, when you sell time of your labor at high volume, the client is billed not for the software, but for the people. So the contract would say 40 engineers into 160 hours into rate is equal to billing amount. Now watch what that means. A fresher costs the company very little and is billed to the client at a markup. The gap between these two numbers is the profit. And because the base is very, very huge, the pyramid churns millions of dollars in profits. This is the machine that ran in India for 25 years, resulting into the IT boom of India. Which is why in its best year ever, this industry added 450,000 jobs. And during this era, India lifted millions of people out of poverty. If this is clear, now let me show you the problem. In most of these giant IT companies, this pyramid is further divided into 5 parts. One is testing, where a senior engineer builds a feature and somebody has to try every possible way to break it. So they have to enter a negative number, enter an emoji, enter nothing, and write down what happened hundreds of times. Number 2 are boilerplate. Huge amounts of software are structurally repetitive. So imagine writing the same formal letter for 400 times while changing only the name and the address. Do you realize that's crazy labor? Number 3 is maintenance. If something built in 2011 broke, the engineer has to read 40,000 lines of code that somebody else wrote and find the one wrong line to fix it. 4th is translation. If a client is moving from an old system to a new one, someone has to convert it piece by piece. And number 5 is documentation. Here, the engineer has to write down what the code does so that the next person can understand it. Now, do you realize this work, even though it is absolutely necessary and difficult to work with, if you look at what these jobs have in common, they are repetitive, they are patterned, the instructions are clear, the answer is knowable, it's high volume and low ambiguity work. Do you realize this is what large language models are absolutely great at? Not good, they are the absolute best at it. This is the reason why the Indian IT industry is in deep trouble. And if you're in an engineering college studying IT, you need to question your career decision right now. This should ring alarm bells in your head, and if you're about to take admission in an engineering college, please show this video to your parents. But now the question is, if AI is going to eat these jobs, then what will be left? Well, think about it. What is AI genuinely bad at? AI cannot sit in a room with a nervous bank executive and understand what they actually need versus what they say they need. AI cannot decide which of the 6 defensible architectures fit a company's politics. AI cannot take responsibility when a system fails at 3 a.m. So AI cannot take up all jobs, especially jobs that need strong judgment, high ambiguity, high accountability, and fostering relationships. That is the top of the pyramid. So the moral of this entire case study is not like AI is going to come for programmers. That's a lazy headline and it is wrong. It says that AI is extremely good at the bottom and extremely bad at the top. And India's IT industry built the widest bottom in the world, and that bottom right now is at risk. Now here's where most people might say, bro, engineers will use AI to be more efficient, nah? So how will AI take away jobs? It will in fact lead to more productivity and not job loss. Well, that is correct, but it comes with a problem. And it's not a you problem, it's a business model problem. Let's say you are this IT giant and you give your engineers AI tools. Let's assume they get 30% faster. Objectively, this is a triumph. If this is clear, now let me show you the problem. Now, you bill your client per engineer. So when the client walks into a contract renewal and says, you have AI now, we know that you need fewer people, so please charge us less. So what happens to your revenue? It will fall, and that too by 30%, because you have successfully made yourself more efficient, but at the same time, you've also shrunk your own business by doing it because you are billing your client on the basis of people and not productivity. So the productivity improvement does not land profits in your pocket. It lands in your client's pocket. And this is not hypothetical, guys. The industry has a name for it now. They call it AI deflation. You know who won't face a problem? Product companies. If Microsoft makes its engineers 30% faster, Microsoft can keep every dollar of that gain because Microsoft sells a product at a price. So efficiency is pure profit for them. But if you sell time, your entire commercial model is priced in human hours. Then a technology that reduces the hours is not an upgrade. It is in fact going to eat into your profits. So INFOSYS AI business is real and it is growing very fast. Its AI revenue is climbing double digits. But every AI project it delivers makes the rest of its business a little bit smaller. Now a lot of people might say, bro, all of this is theory. You don't know how IT companies work. Today we're using AI, we're more productive and everything is going very well. In fact, our companies are not laying off people. So what exactly are you talking about? Well, let's look at the numbers, guys. Freshers hiring has gone down from roughly 600,000 new graduates a year at its peak down to about 120,000 graduates. So the bottom of the pyramid lost 80% of its team in just 3 years. And you know what? It's still falling. In June, entry-level tech openings in India were down by 44% and senior openings were down by 67%. The total active tech jobs hit a 28-month low already. So everything that I'm saying right now is happening whether you see it or you don't see it. And most of these companies won't say it out loud because if they say it out loud, they will have a PR problem. So now the question is, as an engineer, what can you do to save yourself from this chaos? And as an engineering student, should you just quit college? Well, not at all. The good news is, Bain & Company estimates that India will have more than 2.3 million AI job openings by 2027. And India's AI talent pool will be about 1.2 million. So do you see this? There'll be a shortage of about 1 million people. So while the entry-level IT openings in India are down by 44%, at the same time, in the same country, in the same year, there are 1 million AI jobs that nobody here is qualified to fill. Now, most people think using ChatGPT is using AI. No. An AI native engineer does not just use the tool, they're the ones who understand the architecture underneath it and can apply engineering judgment when the AI's answer is wrong or lazy or inefficient. So if you want to excel and not perish in this chaos, please do these 4 things. Number 1, build the judgment layer. You need to learn to think and solve problems without the tools so that when you have the tools, you can use them with an in-depth understanding and not as a substitute for your lack of knowledge. Number 2, everybody is now collecting AI certificates, but they really don't understand how to use AI. So please start collecting real knowledge about AI tools and not just fancy certificates. Number 3, learn to communicate like a pro with your clients. The future belongs to those smart senior engineers who know how to talk, how to understand the client's requirement, and how to build relationships. And your engineering colleges will never teach you this. And lastly, learn to explain your work properly. That's what will put you on top of this pyramid. Because when a client is looking to spend 100 crores with your company, they would expect you to present every nuance of your project so that they can trust you. So the question is, today, can you stand in front of a client who's about to spend 100 crores and make them trust you? If the answer is no, you need to work on your communication skills. Because no matter how much this bottom shrinks, remember, the apex of this pyramid is never ever shrinking. These are the most important takeaways that you need to start acting on right away. And if you know of great AI courses, please leave the link in the comments so that everybody else can also benefit. Moral of the story is, you don't need to be scared, you just need to spot the right opportunity to excel. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button to support our work. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.